Hello everyone, my name is Elizabeth Saraf and I'm an intern at the NOAA Southwest Fisheries Science Center. And I'm working with the team there to look at particle tracking revealing pelagic red crabs as indicators of climate-driven range expansion in the California current. I'm currently an undergraduate student at the University of Rhode Island studying marine biology. And that photo in the middle of the screen that you're looking at is our species of interest, the pelagic red crab. So let's start off with a little bit of background about our species. We know that they eat diatoms, dinoflagellates, and zooplankton, making them a nutritious source of protein and energy for the following predators: seabirds, sharks, tuna, sea turtles, and even mammals. This alludes to them being key players in the marine ecosystem. We know they reside off the coast of Baja California and Mexico. To give you a little background about that aspect of their life, they live for about 5 years. The first 2 years, they are both benthic and pelagic. They are in planktonic larvae, so they rely on the undercurrent as transport back to their original domain off of Baja California. But that blue arrow on the left shows how far their distribution goes as larvae. And then once they hit about 2 years old, they become strictly benthic as adults in their final morphological state. Okay, so we are going to be looking at the adults to give you a little bit of background about their reproduction history. In the summer and fall, the adults are on the continental slope. That's about over 150 meters depth. And then when it's time to reproduce, they migrate to the continental shelf and warmer waters during the winter and spring to reproduce. So our focus is the transport of those adults on the continental slope. The images on the bottom right are from another study, just showing you what they look like at that depth. So here's a little schematic that I had created to show the importance of this issue. So we know in 1859, that was the first recorded pelagic red crab stranding. We do not know if that had happened before, but we're assuming it has. The important thing to take away from this timeline is that with time going on, the amount of red crab strandings increases. So each little tick mark is a pelagic red crab stranding event on the beaches of Monterey, California. I've also chosen to include El Nino occurrences with that because of the many hypotheses provided. El Nino correlation is one of those. So this issue has not only grabbed the attention of scientists, but also in the news. Everyone has their own idea as to why this is happening, but no one knows for sure. There have been studies done, which I will get into, about why people think it's happening. But this is the purpose of this study. So what is our overall mission? We want to understand the impact of climate-driven change in the California current ecosystem by quantifying the drivers of pelagic red crabs northward transport. Like I mentioned before, the figure on the left shows that transport, northerly transport. So the bigger red bubble is Baja California, Mexico, and that's where they normally reside. And they are transported up to that smaller arrow in Central California, Monterey, California. So Megan Simino has recently published a paper, or it's in review, kind of outlining all these hypotheses that are suggested. And I really like this figure, so I want to walk everyone through it. So we start off with that initial question: why are the red crabs in Central California? The first divide, they've either been there and we just haven't known, or they've been transient. If they're transient, they are transported to Central California, not really known why yet, or they have supporting physiology of that range expansion, or they're actively swimming. If they're being transported to Central California, it's either done by strong currents or changes in longitudinal or vertical distribution. So Megan's study refuted that they have been historically resident. She followed that tree down, that they are transient and they're transported to Central California by anonymously strong currents. So With that information, we are going to use the poleward advection hypotheses, which generally is looking at the California current, undercurrent, and the seasonal coastal currents as being responsible for that transport. That figure on the right outlines those currents of interest. So we specifically during this study are looking at the blue currents, California current and the coastal jet. So what do we expect? We're going to be using a Python package to simulate the movement of particles through the California current ecosystem to observe those pathways. And if it is in correlation with the California current ecosystem, the particles should behave as they do with the Monterey, California strandings. So how do we do this? We're going to be using a particle tracking simulation through Python called Ocean Parcels, which I'll explain in a little bit. To run simulations for 2 years, 2015 and 2002. We chose these years based on the difference in stranding events. So in 2015, there were a lot of stranding events, and then in 2002, not so many. So these simulations we're going to run backwards from Monterey, California, and then forwards from Baja, California, Mexico. Backwards and forwards, I mean in terms of time. But like any scientist knows, this is not just a simple two-step process. As an intern at NOAA's Southwest Fisheries Science Center, I came into this experience only having R background. So in my 10-week period, I had to learn Python. I had to download data from Glob Current. Then I had to learn how to subset that global data to only the area of focus, the California current ecosystem. Coming with a marine biology background, I had not taken a class in oceanography yet, so I had to understand the impacts of different current velocities in that observed area. And using COVID restrictions, I had to do this internship remotely, so I had to learn the collaborative environment of Jupyter's Notebook to learn that coding with my mentors. And then I had to learn Ocean Parcels to build those simulations. So why Ocean Parcels? What is Ocean Parcels? That figure, that screen recording on the left is right off the page if you Google Ocean Parcels. And it's just kind of showing what we can do with this package. So each black dot represents a particle, and the velocities, I'll play it again. The velocities are uploaded by that global data, and you can move the particles through that data. And so Ocean Parcels uses data from Glob Current, and that's what we did with our study. And you have 3 different kinds of currents. You have geostrophic, Ekman, and Stokes. What's really cool is that you can choose which currents influence the particle movements. For our study, we influenced the particles with geostrophic and Ekman currents. So as I begin to present our results, I'd like to take a moment to remind you what we're looking at. We're exploring the pelagic red crab's interactions with surface flow. Again, that's the California current and the coastal jet, and those are highlighted in the blue boxes. Again, we are looking at 2002 and 2015. I've circled them in pink to show the amount of strandings differences. Okay, now the cool part, our results. Using Ocean Parcels, we ran the simulation backwards from May 2002 to August 1st, 2001. We released thousands of particles off of Monterey, California. And to remind you, 2002 was a low reporting of these observations, so this is exactly what you'd expect. As time goes on, the pelagic red crabs are moving southerly. But in a year where there is a lot of observations recorded in 2015, having that same timeline, using both the Ekman and geostrophic velocities, we see that those pelagic red crabs are getting stuck in Monterey, California, which exactly correlates the amount of observations. When I say those pelagic red crabs are being stuck, I know this because the particles are also getting stuck and they're being influenced by the same currents as the pelagic red crabs. Super cool stuff. So we've included this Python movie kind of showing you the differences between the 2 years. The red indicating 2002 and the blue indicating 2015. Same timeline, and as you can see, it's supporting our hypotheses that the pelagic red crabs are being influenced by those coastal surface areas, at least when they're being run backwards. So when we run it forwards from Baja California, we see results that point to the suggestion that the pelagic red crabs are being influenced by California undercurrents. We looked at June and 2002 and 2015, and we ran that forward 6 months to December. This is just alluding that we have more work to do. So to summarize what we had found, using Megan's hypotheses tree, we see even further support that the currents are responsible for the transport of pelagic red crabs. So what does this mean? For the red crabs specifically, it means they're going to be stuck in Monterey, California for the rest of their lifespan, which again is 5 years. And this adds to the evidence of tropicalization of temperate areas. For science, we can use the pelagic red crabs as indicators of anomalous transport. This leads to having a better understanding of potential impacts of pelagic red crabs' new presence in the Central California's ecosystem, i.e. the predator-prey relationship. And being that they are so nutritious, this may influence the migratory predators' species distribution. So that figure from NOAA on the left kind of shows what the presence of pelagic red crabs does to a bluefin tuna diet. So that the red bar in 2015 represents how many pelagic red crabs were found in a relative manner in the bluefin tuna gut. And you can see that when the pelagic red crabs are there, that's what the bluefin tuna want. So what's next? Totally, we are not done here. We want to composite simulations for all the years that we have. So since 1993, we also want to isolate those current effects, geostrophic, Ekman, and Stokes, and also implement some undercurrent data. And we want to look at the predator-prey relationship of the pelagic red crab, as it is an interest of fisheries. And then using this newly found ocean parcels package, we want to commit this to other species changing distributions. I'd like to thank you for joining me today. I've included my email. I also like to thank my mentors, Stephanie, Isaac, Megan, Michael, Elliot, Stephen, and then the scholarship that allowed me to do this, the NOAA's Ernest F. Holling Scholarship.